A very warm welcome here on Canal 2 English, and our program today is The Forum, and our guest is Mr. Durrel Hallesson. He is the Business and Industry Coordinator for the WWF. WWF simply stands for Worldwide Fund for Nature, the country office for Cameroon. With him, we are going to be talking about what is going on today in Douala, which is the Cameroon Investment Forum. What business has WWF got to do with Cameroon Investment Forum? Those are the main questions and others that will be asked in this program. So please don't go away. As I introduce at the introduction of this program, our guest in the forum today is Durrel Hallesson. He is the coordinator of, that is, Business and Industries Coordinator for WWF, that is Worldwide Fund for Nature. And you know the organization already, but the country office for Cameroon. And he is here today because in Douala, as you may know already, the Cameroon Investment Forum, yes, is organizing a kind of show to promote Cameroon's potential in terms of investment. And the question that everybody is asking is, what business has got to do WWF in such a meeting? So, Mr. Durrel, a very warm welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ellis.
As I introduced in the introduction, you heard everybody, as you heard. The question I would like to ask you directly is that what has Worldwide Fund for Nature got to do with Cameroon Business Investment Forum?
Yeah, thanks very much. And I think that's one question everybody will ask. That's one question that will really warrant an answer, because the idea of what people know WWF is that it's a conservation, environmental-based organization whose traditional main mandate has been to protect wildlife, ensure that humans live in harmony with nature. And for quite some time, we've been having a new approach where we're moving not away from our protected areas, which used to be our traditional business, but to start engaging actors outside the protected areas. And one of those actors outside the protected areas are different investors or different activities that are taking place outside those protected areas. Because like you know, the protected area in Cameroon is totally protected. You have different categories of protection or different classification of protection. So it's difficult to have in a protected area certain activities, especially I should call them economic related activities like mining, agro-industry, all that. But outside the protected areas, those activities do happen. And we can't really stop them. So for WWF, as a conservation-based organization, we're now looking at engaging with those actors outside the protected areas, because what happens outside the protected areas, bad or good, will affect the way the protected areas are managed to ensure that Cameroon's biodiversity is preserved for the future generation. And for us, we saw the Cameroon Investment Forum as an opportunity to reach out to the business world, to investors, to potential investors, because one of the things we have noticed is that Cameroon, that is engaged in becoming an emerging economy by 2035, if you look at the growth and employment strategy paper, we are very much, the government of Cameroon is very much focusing on those areas that could bring Cameroon to emergence in 2035. And one of those areas is mining. You have the modernizing the agricultural sector, with us moving towards what they call the second generation agriculture. We have industrial development, infrastructural development that are happening all over. All these projects, we like it or not, will have some kind of impact on the environment. And we think that the forum where Cameroon will be exposing its potential of attracting investors will be also an opportunity for us to make businesses, investors, understand that there's another way of doing business. We need to move from the profitability, I'll call it the profitability approach, which has guided business over the years, from the pure capitalist approach to now go towards an integrated approach where we're looking at marrying profitability with environmental values and social values. Exactly. So businesses should do that. And they should do that not because one of the things we notice, if we look at all the corporate social responsibility in the world, is that most of the time that businesses do any social thing, like they offer beds to hospitals, they do it more from as part of their philanthropy, as part of charity.
Okay.
But we think that there's an opportunity for businesses to start looking at this from another perspective.
From another perspective, the question I would like to ask you, which is, I think there is a kind of conflict between people or organizations like yours that is advocating or promoting sustainable development and pure industrialists and capitalists. The question is, how will you convince a businessman that he should get involved or start practicing sustainable development, given that sometimes it is very expensive?
That's quite a good question, and
thank you.
It's quite tricky as well. I think we want, before 1992, if I could go back a bit, before 1992, the world was engaged in like the business as usual. In 1987, you had the Brundtland Commission, the World Commission on Environment and Development. That's where, for the first time, the concept sustainable development was coined out and accepted by all stakeholders in the world. We had in 1992 the Rio de Janeiro conference on environment and development, the UN Rio de Janeiro conference in June 1992. And for the first time, the parties or the United Nations members agreed that there's an opportunity for that business could play in promoting this concept of sustainable development, which is meeting the needs of today and ensuring that the needs of tomorrow are guaranteed for our future generations. That is the concept of sustainability. And it has three pillars: economic, social, and environment. Like you said, that for most businesses, industrialists, it's not always, they don't accept those things on their face value. Sustainable development, what is it? I need to make money, and that's my interest.
Exactly.
But we have seen recently, and I'll quote it, I hope it's not for any bad publicity, but we saw what is happening in the US and Europe with Volkswagen.
Exactly.
The emission scandal.
Yes, the emission scandal, yes.
Volkswagen, because they wanted to export their diesel cars into the US market, and the US Environmental Protection Agency has put a kind of cap on the level of CO2 or NTO emissions, they had to cheat by putting a software to pass the test to show that their cars are acceptable in the US market. But what happened? When that was discovered that they were cheating, today Volkswagen has to, you follow the scandal.
Exactly.
The CEO resigned. They have to recall 11 million cars from the market, and they have to pay almost an estimated $86 billion
in compensation.
Dollars in compensation.
Exactly.
Of which, if they have invested in ensuring that their emissions, in investing in technology to reduce their emissions, they would not have been there in the situation they are. It has affected not just their sales, but it has affected very well their reputation. If you look at cartoons about Volkswagen, you just it's
scandalizing.
It's scandalizing.
Now, that's very good, but when you come back to Cameroon, right, you've given a very good example that Volkswagen in Germany and their problems in Europe and in the United States. Now, when you come back to Cameroon, how will you convince, because there are some Cameroonians, some Africans, and some people in the general developing world who think that it is their own turn to develop, that is, pollute. And how will you now convince, when you will be meeting the industrialists there at the Cameroon Investment Forum today, because it's starting today.
No, it starts tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Yeah. Anyway, the program, yes. But now, how will you convince them that, okay, now sustainable development is as viable economically as the standard development? How will you convince them? Because some people think that you have, anyway, the industrialized country have destroyed their own environment. It is our own turn, it's a sacrifice needed in order for us to develop. How will you then convince them?
There are two things.
Yes.
Sustainable development is not just, I should call it a moral concept. It goes beyond. The Cameroon legislature has integrated that concept in all our laws, all our major laws, from the Constitution of Cameroon. The protection of the environment and the duty to protect the environment is incumbent on all citizens.
But do they apply it? There's
No,
one
I'm
thing.
just, yeah, I'm coming. If you look at the 1996 Environmental Management Framework Law, it states clearly that all projects that are likely to have an impact on the environment or on people should be subjected to an environmental and social impact assessment with an accompanying environmental and social management plan where they actually put in place the measures they will take to mitigate those impacts. And I could go on and on with the different sectorial laws, the forestry law, the mining law, and even the Cameroon investment laws have put it clearly. One of the guiding principles of the 2000, the Cameroon Investment Charter, is the concept of sustainable development. Exploit our soil and our subsoil for rational management of our environment, of our natural resources. And the 2013 Investment Incentive Law, the Cameroon that really provides incentives to businesses, states, I think in Article 8, that businesses that engage in promoting such activities that, for example, fight against pollution, keep the environment safe, promote rural development, will be eligible for certain incentives like tax breaks.
In Cameroon, right?
In Cameroon.
That's the Cameroon's law.
That's the Cameroon. So that is at the level of the law.
The law, yes.
Now,
Yes.
even at the level of the businesses,
Exactly.
there's an added value. Yesterday, we had an opportunity to meet with GCAM, which is the platform for businesses, is a grouping of businesses for Cameroon.
Cameroon, yes.
And we never thought that they were moving towards that direction. They have put in place a subcommission to look at issues around social and environment and ethics.
Yeah, they have put up, that's GCAM.
GCAM.
They have a subcommittee on environmental,
social.
exactly. But yet, you, WWF, don't you see that in Cameroon? There's a kind of contradiction. For example, they have a law on plastic bags and things like that, but yet you see the plastic bottles and everything, which means that somewhere, don't you think that you're like preaching in the desert and nobody's listening to what you're doing? And yet you are at the Cameroon Investment Forum. How will you convince them? Because you have not told me. Let me simplify things for you.
Yeah.
Now let's go on the kind of the agricultural sector,
Yeah.
which is a sector which is viable. Most Cameroonians are in the sector.
Yeah.
How will WWF convince cocoa farmers, pineapple growers to stop using, let's say, for example, pesticides and other something like, how do you call it?
Clearing the forest.
Or clearing the forest.
Yeah. Thanks very much. Unfortunately, in Cameroon, we're not working in the pineapple or in the cocoa sector as of now.
Okay.
And I think looking at the dynamics, it should be a sector that will be interested. But you did mention the agricultural sector.
Sure.
We've been working for the past 3 to 4 years on the oil palm sector. It should please you to know that Cameroon, despite the fact that we're one of the first countries to become an oil palm producing country, Malaysia, Indonesia, they got their seedlings from Cameroon, but they're today
the number one and number two. Yeah.
Cameroon has a deficit, domestic deficit of oil palm. We can't meet the demands of oil palm. And what we've been doing in WWF is to make sure that the government rethink its strategy on the oil palm sector. The deficit problem in Cameroon is not because we don't have land. The
land, yes.
Or we have to remain agro-industrial companies, CDC, palm oil, and Socapam. These 3 companies have been unable to exploit the land they have. So there's no need to give new lands to new investors. And what we've been telling the government is, you could now start looking at encouraging the smallholders. The smallholders, because there you have two results immediate. One, you'll be fighting poverty in the rural areas. 2, the smallholders won't have the capacity like the big agro-industrial companies to clear large expanse of land.
Okay.
And they won't dare to go into intact forests.
All right. Now let me ask you a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
When you say you've named palm oil, CDC, and Socapam, the 3 major agro-industrial establishments in these countries. They have not been able, they have the land, but they have not been able to attain the capacity, to the production capacity of palm oil, for example, and you are against the government allowing other actors into the field. Are you in a way saying that the problems that Heracles farms have in the Indian division, it has something to do with the pressure from the WWF?
I won't want to say that WWF.
You
I
contributed in a way.
I don't want to go into that debate because
Why?
I mean, I could really tell you when
Yes.
Heracles, the concession that was given to Heracles, the first concession they had in 2009, which was almost 78,000 hectares, was given in an area that is considered ecologically fragile because of its biodiversity richness.
Exactly.
You have the Korob National Park, you have the Bayambo Wildlife Sanctuary, you have the Rumpi.
And that is
Reserve.
those concessions were given by the government.
By the government.
And this is the same government you said is promoting sustainable development in its legislature.
It states that, and I won't be, it will please you to know that after the pressure that was put on the government by civil society actors, by the public, the government in 2013 came back on that decision and reduced Heracles concession from 78,000 to less than 20,000 hectares, of which they have up to 3 years, which should be expiring this year, to show their capacity to put that 20,000 into use.
To use.
I won't want to say what the situation is now, but
Why don't you say it? It's a stage for you to say
no,
what
I won't, because we haven't done an evaluation to know what
Not
they're
yet.
doing. But that is for the government to answer what they are doing.
All right.
And just, if you permit me also.
Yes, I will.
What we are doing with the palm oil sector, WWF at the international level has been promoting standards for sustainable palm oil, just like we've been doing for forestry, which has been one of our traditional sectors we have been supporting. We are not against people getting involved in those sectors, but there's another way you could do it better, and that's why we're here.
That's why you're here
Yeah.
for the Cameroon Investment Forum. And now let's tell us, because when we hear you've contributed in enlightening the civil society organization to pressure people like the Heracle farms, isn't it?
I won't say we enlighten them.
Yes.
No, I mean, every Cameroonian, like I said, the duty to protect the environment is incumbent on all Cameroonians, on all
But
citizens.
WWF will be happy to see less destruction of forests.
Yes.
True or false?
No, true.
True. Good.
Because the forest holds a lot for us. That's one thing. The forest holds a lot for us. The way we are living today, if we are not careful, our children will not meet anything.
The forest will be destroyed.
Because to meet our current demand, we need at least, we have just one planet.
Okay.
We have just one planet.
One plan. Now let's come back to your business of the Cameroon Investment. What is I've asked at the introduction, what is the interest of WWF? Now, if somebody else who perhaps just got into his house and turned on his TV or her TV set, and you are on Canal Do English and he sees you, okay, this is Hallesson on the screen. What has he got to say here today about WWF? Yes. Now, how can WWF, or what is the interest of WWF working with the business world?
Okay, I will put it simple. In Cameroon, just like at the international level, WWF is one of the biggest conservation organizations in the world. We have almost 90 offices in 90 countries. And at the international level, we are very much involved. For example, if I cite the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals that were just adopted in September during the UN General Assembly, we've been very instrumental in those things. At the level of Cameroon, we are intending to put in place a network of Cameroonian businesses and investors on sustainable development, to promote sustainable development. And what is our interest? Our interest, one, is to help businesses to adopt policies on the ground that avoid and minimize impacts on biodiversity. What does that mean? It means that businesses could start doing business. There are different means of which you could really do business. You could really do your business with a minimal impact on the biodiversity or on the environment and people. Mm-hmm. Because the same people they need that environment to live. They need that biodiversity to live. Mm-hmm. We are also interested to seek opportunities for biodiversity conservation and generate benefits for people who depend on natural resources. Take the example of Cameroon. 70% of our population lives in the rural areas.
Okay. I now understand.
And they all depend on their immediate environment for their survival.
All right.
So you should be careful the way you manage that environment, because whatever you do on that, in that environment will come back to you one way or another negatively, because by the time they can't live on that, on the natural resources that are around them, they'll start putting pressure on this, on the urban areas.
On the urban areas.
Yes, and we have a problem there that we might not be able to manage.
You might not be. Now tell us, for example, you are here in the Cameroon Business Investment Forum. People often think WWF is just this kind of, in code, people who want to disturb businesses from growing. They have a kind of idealistic view of the world. You've just said that if care is not taken, you guys like scaremongers. But now let me ask something about, yes. Are you enemies of corporate bodies? Are you enemies of investors? If no, can you give us, for example, an example where WWF has a kind of corporate engagements with all activities?
Yeah. Thanks very much. Like I said, WWF is one of the few, if not the only, non-governmental organization, environmental-based organization working with the corporate world. We have a long history. We have a long history with the corporate world. Yeah.
And what are they engaged in some activities?
For one, if you want to know, the Forest Stewardship Council, FSC, which is a certification scheme, was initiated by WWF for forests, or we call them the logging companies. And today, I could tell you happily, without any reservation, that there are some companies that have engaged in that route, that have had their FSC certification, and today, they could really tell you the benefits that, by engaging in that process, it has had for the company. We have also initiated the Roundtable on Sustainable Palm Oil, which is another certification scheme for palm oil companies. And there, it might surprise you that we have companies like Unilever, Kajil. We could have reservation for some of these companies, but then you need to start somewhere to push them somewhere. Because if we all say that businesses and conservation are two different worlds, it won't work. Someone needs to stand in the gap. And that's what we are doing. In Cameroon, we have companies, we have engaged with companies. We have engaged, if I take example,
yeah, which
MTM.
Company? MTN.
MTM. We had a project with MTM in the North. We called that project the Tree for Life.
Is that a mobile company?
The mobile company.
What business has mobile company got to do with sustainable development?
Like I said, it's a responsibility for everybody. It's not just about the mobile company.
Yeah.
But they engage. Because you look at the northern part of Cameroon, the approaching desertification. MTM, together with WWF, initiated this project, the Tree for Life, to plant 15,000 trees to stop the advancement of the desert in the north. You won't tell me that that was just philanthropy. MTN will tell you it boosted its image in the northern part of Cameroon.
Brilliant. So you have to work with this MTN telecommunication company for the replanting or afforestation in the greater north of Cameroon.
We did that. It was a project that we had together.
But the question of which everybody would like to ask, which I think I have to, is that have you ever worked with, let's say, the CDC, Socapam, and Pamol? Have you ever?
We are working with them now.
Really?
We are working with CDC, we are working with Socapam, and we are working with Pamol.
Okay.
On two issues. With CDC, Pamol, and Socapam, one is to make, because if you know for a while, like the CDC plantations are almost 50 years old. Some of them, the oil palm. So, and they have problem of production. What we are advising them to do is that you could replant on the same land you have. And
do you think if they replant on the same land, they will still have the same yield?
Yeah, they'll have the same yield.
And
they will have the same yield.
Are you doing that simply?
I'm not an agronomist, but
are you doing that simply because you are afraid that the hectares of forest is going to be reduced, or you are just doing that simply because of?
There's a potential for them to replant, because there's no way to keep aging palms on a land and requiring new land where you have to invest more in terms of clearing, in terms of employing new labor, where all you could just do is to take away the old plants, the old palms, and replant with improved seedlings. Because if those palms were planted 30 or 40 years ago, I think technology has evolved for us to have improved seedlings. Okay. And ERAT is there for that.
All right. Besides that, I've asked you to round off this program to now is, do you work with companies like Gas du Cameroon, Kribi Port Development? And if you had any message to round off to your interview here today, what would you say? Now, respond. Do you work with Gas du Cameroon?
No.
Do you work with Kribi Power Production?
No.
Now, why?
Why? Because we are in a process. We are starting an engagement process. Okay. We are not saying we will not work with them. For example, gas. I don't know if it's Gas du Cameroon, but you have WWF Suez, which is exploring gas in Kribi. They have approached us, and we worked with them. I mean, we spoke with them on their environmental impact process.
Okay.
And so there's an opportunity to work with them as long as they abide to certain rules.
Okay. Look, Mr. Hallesson, it was really a pleasure having you here today. You have really enlightened our viewers on the reason why WWF is present here at the Cameroon Investment Forum. Once again, thank you very much for having accepted our invitation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hallesson.
Well, we had here the Mr. Durrel Hallesson, who is the Business and Industries Coordinator for WWF Cameroon Country Office. And tomorrow we will be receiving another guest. Please stay tuned to programs on Canal de English. And tomorrow is another day.